Let's give a quick recap of what we did 2 weeks ago. Last week we didn't learn. We learned, just not Tanya. So let's give a quick recap and then we're going to move on. Perik Tesvav and Tanya, we start off with the Pasuk in Malachi. Shaftam Isam Ben Sadik L'Rasha Ben Ovid Elokim Asher Lo Yavadeh. Malachi says that the time will come when Mashiach comes, we'll be able to see the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha. And the difference between Ovid Elokim, one who serves Hashem, and Asher Lo Yavadeh, the one who doesn't serve Hashem. So the Gemara asks the question, the Gemara in Chagiga asks the question that Hainu Ovid Elokim, Ben Heihei asked this question. Hainu tzaddik, Hainu Ovid Elokim, Hainu rasha, Hainu Lo Yavadeh. Same thing. Tzaddik is one who serves Hashem. Rasha is one who doesn't serve Hashem. So why is the pasuk being redundant and saying you'll see the difference between a tzaddik and a rasha, between one who serves Hashem and one who doesn't serve Hashem? And the Gemara answers that any doima, we can't compare one who reviews his study 100 times to one who reviews his study 101 times. That the one who reviews his study 101 times is Ovid Elokim, is one who serves Hashem. One who reviews his study only 100 times, that's a Lo Yavadeh, as someone who doesn't serve Hashem. And the Gemara brings the example from the donkey rentals. Mm-hmm. So we explained last week that Avadeh and Lo Yavadeh, both of them are levels in Beinani. As the Gemara says, Tervayu Tzadiki Gemurei Ninu, they're both beautiful people. They're both people who have never done an Avera. Why is one who learns 100? Why is he considered hasn't served Hashem? So the Rabbi explains, because in the olden times it was common practice to review what everyone learned 100 times, because it was Torah Shebal Peh, there were no Sfarim, so whatever was learned really had to be committed to one's memory. So therefore, since studying 100 times was considered to be the normal, so someone who does that's what he's used to. So he's within his comfort zone. So he's not Ovid Elokim, he's not serving Hashem. He's not left his own, he's doing that which he's used to, which he enjoys, and that which he's comfortable doing. To serve Hashem, you have to go beyond your comfort zone. You have to really learn 101 times. And it's not about the amount, it's not 100. You think, okay, so if 100 is not serving Hashem, I have to study 200 times? No. It's that extra one time that you push yourself. You're not used to it. It's beyond your comfort zone. It's not what you like. That is what makes you Ovid Elokim. That's what makes you someone who serves Hashem. We gave the example last week of the husband comes home and does the chores. We spoke about that. No. Imagine a husband who comes home every single night, and after a long day of work, and it's a standard. He comes home and for an hour he helps, does the chores. He washes some dishes, and he, folds some laundries, bathes the kid. Takes the garbage out, right? We can't forget that. And then after the hour, he goes and sits down in his recliner, takes out a newspaper or whatever else it may be. If he's from, he takes out a sefer, relaxes after a long day. One day he comes home and he sees that his wife isn't feeling so great. She looks tired. So he tells his wife, "Why did you go rest? Tonight I'll do my chores and I'll do your chores too. 2 hours instead of 1 hour." That extra hour of work that he does is worth more than all the hours you did before combined.
All the hours.
All that, right? Now, in the wife's estimation, she values that hour more than the previous year of coming home every hour, every day and doing an hour. That hour is worth more. Why? Because she knows that her husband is a person who has a routine. And yes, an hour of help, he's used to doing it, and that's part of his schedule. And then after that hour, he falls into the couch. And that's it. For him to go out of his comfort zone and to do that extra hour, it's not a difference in quantity. It's not doing 2 hours instead of 1 hour. It's a difference in quality. He's doing it for her. He's going out of his own comfort zone of doing it for her. And the same thing is in terms of our relationship with Hashem. Ovid Elokim, one who serves Hashem is someone who leaves their comfort zone and pushes themselves 101 times. How much tzedakah do you have to give? Someone once asked the Rebbe, how much, was a wealthy person, says, how much tzedakah do I have to give? The Rebbe says you have to give till it hurts. Till it hurts. If it doesn't hurt,
It's not tzedakah.
It doesn't hurt. It's tzedakah. But that's the point over here. If it doesn't hurt, if it's in your comfort zone, you have not left yet your comfort zone, you have not gone to the level of Ovid Elokim, of serving Hashem. So based on this, I want to learn a little piece of Gemara with you, Masechtas Avodah Zarah, which is a very similar theme, a very geschmacky piece of Gemara. It's Daf Yud Ches Amud Aleph, and it's talking about a famous Tana whose name was Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian. What do you know about Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian? Anyone? He was one of the Asara Regei Malchus. He's one of the famous 10 martyrs. He was brutally killed. He was burned. They wrapped him up in the Sefer Torah, which he was teaching, and they burnt him alive. He was the one who said the famous words when his students asked him, "What do you see?" He said, "I see the parchment is burning, and the Oisi is parchis, and the letters are flying up to heaven." Letters of Sefer Torah. So this story happened shortly before then. It says, Tanya Rabbanon, Kishachala Rabbi Yosi ben Kisma, he became ill. Yeah. Halach Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian levakre. So Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian came to visit him. Amar le, so Rabbi Yosi ben Kisma tells him, Chanina Achi, my brother Chanina, Iyata Yedea, are you unaware, that this nation, the Romans, min hashamayim him lichua, they've gotten their mandate, their rule from heaven. Shechriva as Beisa, they destroyed Hashem's house, the Beis Hamikdash. V'sarfa as Heichal, this regime, they burnt down the Heichal. V'harga as Chasidav, killed the pious ones. V'avda as Tuvav, and destroyed the best of us. V'adayin hi kayemes, and they're still around. They're still out doing their work. V'ani shamati alacha, but I hear about you. Sha'ata yeshev v'esik b'Torah, that you are sitting and studying Torah. U'makil kehilais berabim, you're publicly assembling Yidden. V'sefer Torah munach lacha b'cheikecha, and you have a sefer Torah sitting in your bosom, and you're teaching. What's this about? What's this all about? You don't realize what
What's happening?
What the consequences are of this. Amar loy, so Chanina answered, "Men hashamayim yirachamu, from heaven they'll have mercy on me." Amar loy, so Rabbi Yosi ben Kisma answers him, "Ani eimer locha dvarim shaltam." I'm speaking logic. V'ata eimer li men hashamayim yirachamu, and you're telling me that from heaven they'll have mercy. Listen to me.
Ben Kisma, they don't do the same thing. They not teach.
Ben Kisma is interesting. The Gemara says earlier he was also arrested by the Romans, but he got out of it with a miracle, because when they asked him, "Why are you studying Torah?" So he denied it. He says, "I don't study Torah," and a miracle happened to prove that he wasn't. But he wasn't. He didn't have the same. Later, when they caught Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian and they asked him, "Why are you studying Torah?" So he had a very different. He said, "Why? Because Hashem commanded me." He was, in other words, he was a completely different. Yeah. So he says, so again, Rabbi Yosi ben Kisma says, "I'm speaking to you dvarim shaltam, words of rational words. And you're telling me, I wonder, I wonder if they're not going to burn you with a Sefer Torah and the Sefer Torah ba'esh and fire," which is obviously a prophecy, which is exactly what happened.
Wow.
Amar loy. So that was part 1 of the conversation, Act 1 of the story. Act 2. Amar loy. Rabbi Chanina tells Rabbi Yosi ben Kisma, "Rabbi, my master, ma'ani lecha elam haba. What do you think? Am I going to get elam haba?" Amar loy, so Rabbi Yosi answers him, "Klum ma'isa bal yadecha. Did you ever do anything good?" Amar loy, so he answers, he says like this, "Yeah, I did want something good." He says, "What happened?" It happened once. Moishel Purim nischalfuli b'moishel tzedakah. That I once had mixed up the money of Purim with money of tzedakah. In other words, Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian was a gabbai tzedakah. In fact, elsewhere the Gemara says that you should not give money to a tzedakah fund unless the one who is in charge of it is as trustworthy as Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian. He was gabbai tzedakah. So once he collected money to give out for Purim, to tzedakah for the poor people. So he had one purse with the money he collected. Then he had another purse with his own money for his own Purim meal, and he went to buy his own stuff for his own Purim meal. But by mistake, he took the tzedakah money. Now, what was he entitled to do? Since it was a mistake,
take from his money and put it by the.
No, sorry, I messed up the story. I'm sorry. Sorry, when he gave out the money to tzedakah, I'm sorry, he gave out from his own money. That's right. He mixed up and he gave out his own money. So now what's he entitled to do? He's entitled now to take back the money from the tzedakah because it was by mistake. He was intending. But instead, what did I do? I gave the tzedakah money also to the poor. So I gave both purses to the poor because instead of reimbursing, so that's my good deed. Amar Loi, so Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma answered, "In Cain, if so, mechelkacha yehi chalki. May my lot be like your lot, umegiralcha yehi girali, and let my portion be your portion, and let your portion be my portion." This is the Gemara. We know that in Agadat is where most of the secrets of Torah are hidden, as I state. In Yaakov, Reiv Seides HaTorah genuzen by most of the secrets. This is a very strange conversation. You know, the first part of the conversation is sad, is tragic, but it's understandable. Because throughout our history, we always had that question, to what extent am I allowed to go a Mesiras Nefesh in order to be able to do mitzvahs? We know that there are 3 mitzvahs which are Yehareg Val Yaver. There are 3 Averas, which we have to give up our life for in order not to transgress them. The 3 cardinal Averas. All the other mitzvahs, so it's actually a halachic debate. The Rambam, the Raiva, the Kesef Mishnah, is a person allowed to be Meiser Nefesh for other mitzvahs? So studying Torah and teaching Torah B'Rabim. So obviously Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma held that he shouldn't be Meiser Nefesh for it. V'chai b'hem. And Rabbi Metradian felt that you're allowed to be Meiser Nefesh. And again, Elu ve'elu Divri Elokim Chayim, and both of them held valid positions.
But I have a question on this conversation. How we tell him, I can see that you be burned with the Sefer Torah. He's too tough. Even if you see it, he doesn't have to tell him that.
What's the issue? Good?
The radio's on.
Oh. Sorry, go ahead.
I said, even if you see in the future that he's going to burn with Sefer Torah around him, you can't tell him that.
He was trying to dissuade him. It didn't work. He was telling him, if you keep on doing this, is what's going to happen. He felt that he shouldn't be doing it.
But you see, it's happening there, and he potach pela Satan.
It's a good question. It's another question. Maybe the Mefarshim talk about it, but that's not what we're focusing on today. The question is the second part of the Gemara. So after this whole conversation, Rabbi Chanina turns to Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma and says, "Am I getting a Olam Haba?" Which is itself is kind of a strange question, considering that we know that humility, anava, doesn't mean that you're in denial of who you are. And Rabbi Metradian definitely knew about all the great things he had done, teaching Torah B'Rabim, and he was a Gabbai Tzedakah, as we mentioned earlier. I'm sure he had many mitzvahs. Why is he so concerned about his Olam Haba? But that's not the strangest part. What does Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma answer him? Tell me, did you ever do anything good? What do you mean? This is Rabbi Metradian. This is the person who he had just now rebuked for putting his life in jeopardy for teaching Torah. Even if you disagree with that approach, even if you think that not, but obviously this is a person who is Meiser Nefesh for Limud Torah, and as I mentioned, is a great tzaddik. Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma definitely knew what kind of tzaddik he was. What do you mean, what kind of good deed did you do?
Telling him to answer your own question.
Sorry?
He's telling him to answer your own question.
Okay, to answer your, and what did he answer?
I gave tzedakah.
I gave tzedakah. That's not. He found one incident that he did, and when Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma heard that incident, says, "In Cain, if so, now everything is good." It's just a strange story.
Tzedakah tatzil mimavet. If I'm going to die with a Sefer,
But he was a Gabbai tzedakah. He was giving tzedakah all the time. This one time. Listen, there's Shivim Panim Al Torah. There could be many answers, but I want to share with you the answer that the Alter Rebbe gives in Torah era. The Rebbe says that as we spoke about last week, different people have different natures. And some people by nature enjoy studying Torah. And in fact, some people enjoy studying so much, if you take that away from them, so their life almost isn't worth anything by nature. These are studious people, introverted people, intellectual people, as we expanded on this last week. And the Alter Rebbe there actually talks about the Greek philosophers, who we also spoke about last week. And that was the question that Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian was asking. And it doesn't seem that the question was, am I going to Gan Eden or am I going to Gehenna? I don't think anyone can figure a path for him to Gehenna. But his question was, Ma'ani l'chai ilm haba, what kind of ilm haba am I getting? Am I really a servant of Hashem? Or am I really just within my comfort zone? Am I really just doing this all because I enjoy it, and I feel spiritual, and I feel holy, and I'm enjoying the Torah's chachmaschem ubinaschem le'enei ha'amim. It's the greatest wisdom that there is, and someone who enjoys wisdom, of course, is going to enjoy studying Torah. And that's a valid question. And Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma didn't have the answer. So Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma turns back to him and says, tell me, did you ever do anything which would demonstrate to me that you went out of your nature? And he thought, and he said, yeah. He says, that story with the purses being exchanged, it shows on a certain impulsiveness. Because the rational response to such a situation is that you reimburse yourself from the tzedakah. But impulsively he said, no, I'm giving it away. People who are studious in general, the scholarly people, are people who are generally frugal, economical. They're not into giving big gifts. They're not into making, they're not impulsive. They're very calculated. And Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian felt that this was something which was a departure from the nature of someone who is a studious person. And Rabbi Yosef ben Kisma agreed. And he said, if that's the case, then we see that your service of Hashem isn't just because you're in your comfort zone and you're doing what you enjoy, but rather you're really serving Hashem even when it goes against your nature. Which is really another idea. In other words, let's go back to the example we gave before with the husband and the wife. I know the way it is by me, and I'm assuming that it's similar by other people also. There's a certain division of labor in the house, and very often it has to because there's certain things that you just don't like doing. So so I'll do the other thing. I know by me, I don't know why. I never like bathing the kids. So I'll wash the dishes. I have no problem. I'll wash the dishes. I'll sweep the floor. You bathe the kids.
Can I give you my address?
Can you? For what? For bathing the kids or for washing the dishes?
It's the most beautiful thing to bathe the kids.
Yeah, okay.
And to change the kids.
It's not a logical thing. It's just I have a feeling everyone has those things they just don't like doing. So imagine the same scenario we mentioned earlier. That husband comes home, sees that his wife isn't doing so well, says, okay, I'm going to do the chores. But not only am I going to do the chores that I like, or at least don't mind doing, even that thing which I don't like doing, I'm going to do that also.
That's already...
That's la'elo. That's something else entirely. And that's really what, in other words, there's quantitatively going up beyond learning 100 times to learning 101 times. That's a quantitative leap. It's not qualitative. I'm just learning one more time. Qualitative is not only when I'm leaving my nature to serve Hashem by doing a little more than what I'm used to, but I'm actually also going to a completely new area, an area where I'm uncomfortable with, and I'm doing that for Hashem also. And that is the point of this perek that we're learning over here, the idea of the importance of being Oived Hashem, the importance of serving Hashem. And serving Hashem means going out of our comfort zone. So the example that he gives over here in Tanya is from 100 to 101 times. But let's apply that logic. Why is it's Gzeirus HaKasav that 100 times is Oived Elokim, is a Lo Yavadeh, and 101 is Oived Elokim? It's Parshas Chukas, it's a chayk. That 100 to 101, no, it's a logical thing, as the Alter Rebbe explains. In the olden times, the convention was people were used to, from when they were little kids in the Cheder, they studied everything 100 times, and therefore one more time than what you're used to, going out of your comfort zone, that's what makes you into Oived Elokim. So what if I'm used to learning 3 times? Then what? How do I become a Oived Elokim?
3 times, not 100, 3.
Yeah, in other words, we don't live in the times of Hillel and Ben Hehe. We have today, I don't know if there's any yeshiva today where people were where the kids are taught to learn everything 100 times.
No, no.
Okay. So let's say I'm used to reviewing something 3 times. Then how do I become a Ovid Elokim?
4 times.
I'm studying it 4 times. What if I'm used to studying 0 times? Then how do I become a Ovid Elokim?
1 time.
1 time. Yeah. So let's say there's someone, I ask you a question. Let's say there's one person who's used to studying 100 times. And he studies 100 times. And I'm used to studying 0 times.
I'm equal to him.
And I study 1 time. Who's greater?
You,
I'm greater.
The one time.
The 1 time.
1 time. Of course, you're the effort you put forth. There's more serious now.
So it depends what your measure is. That's really, the truth is, it depends what you're right, but it depends what your measure is. In terms of, if you want to know,
Quantitative.
in terms of quantity, and also how well I'm going to know this thing that I'm going to learn. And if you want to know who to ask a shaila, you want to know who's going to be your Rav, don't come to me. Go to the guy who learned it 100 times. This is a person who's obviously a more refined person, a spiritual person. He's used to learning Torah, everything 100 times. That's pretty amazing. But that's only one barometer. That's only one way of measuring. There's another way of measuring, which is in terms of serving Hashem. I went out of my comfort zone and I learned, and he didn't. He remains within his Mitzrayim, to use different terminology. B'chol over there, Chayev Adam Lir Satzmoi, Kil Yatzam Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means your limitations, right? The Mitzarim, your limitations. He's within his limitations, and I left my limitations. Now, the funny thing is that his limitations are much bigger than mine. Even when I left my limitations, I'm still compared to him. But that's not the point. In fact, it says V'haftas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha b'chol mo'edcha. It's about you. It's your. In other words, mo'edcha. Your mo'ed. What does mo'ed mean? The very. The mo'ed. You have to do something not only in the normal amount, but you have to go beyond. You have to do very. It's mo'edcha. We don't measure one person against another. Every single person has to serve Hashem, and it's not about the quantity. It's about
His limitations.
It's about leaving, it's about serving Hashem. And as long as I wake up in the morning and I go through my day and I didn't push myself, it didn't hurt, to use the words. And when I say hurt, that means it hurt in terms of limud HaTorah. In other words, I learned my shir, I learned my hour a day. But that's what I'm used to. I've been doing it for 20 years. That's already, either I was used to it, or by now, as the Alter Rebbe says, Hergel Nasa Teva Sheni, that which when you get used to something, it becomes second nature. So by now, I'm comfortable with it. And I don't push myself. It doesn't hurt me. Or whether it's in my davening, or whether it's in my giving tzedakah, or whether it's in my Avos Yisrael, in whichever area it may be, if I don't push myself, then I have not become a Ovid Elokim. And this, it's a double-edged sword, this idea, which to me is such a phenomenal yisoid in Avodas Hashem, such a phenomenal foundation. It's not about the quantity. It's not how much tzedakah you give. It's not about how much tzedakah you give. You can have one person who gives $10, but that's really serving Hashem, because due to how much he can afford, but even more than that, because of his nature. By his nature, it's difficult to give, and he gives it because Hashem wants. Another person give $10,000. It's not Ovid Elokim, because it didn't hurt. And it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, and I'll talk, it's both good and bad. Which do we start with?
Start with the bad.
Start with the bad. That's a good idea. Okay. The bad is that we tend, very often, when we analyze ourselves, when we become introspective, wo halt ich? Where am I holding in my Avodas Hashem? So we have this scale, and we put on, okay, so I daven 3 times a day, and I put on tefillin, and I learn Torah every day, and I have kibbud aveim, and I give tzedakah, and all these things. And therefore, you make a total, and you say, wow, I'm an amazing person. And while we can't negate that, because there's no question that learning Torah and davening and kibbud aveim and tzedakah and all those other mitzvahs are definitely very important. But again, if you're looking at it from a different measure in terms of avodas Hashem, throw all that out. That's not what it is. The question is, how many times did you put? When was the last time that I pushed myself? When was the last time that I really pushed myself in terms of Avodas Hashem? So that's the, we have to really, I don't even want to say tweak, because it's really overhaul the way that we tend to view ourselves and ascribe value to our actions. We have to realize that the value is when I'm there to serve Hashem. And by the way, obviously, when I learn 101st time, this goes without saying, that validates the whole first 100 also. It's not just then, okay, so then the 101st time is the valuable time, but the first 100 is no. The fact that I learned the 101 times shows that everything I'm doing is to serve Hashem. That's not just about, that. When you push yourself, that validates everything that you've done beforehand also. But the reverse is also true, meaning that sometimes a person can be depressed and think they're very lowly and think that, I barely learn, I barely daven, I barely do this, I barely do that. And then you think to yourself, for me to become the person that I want to be, oh my gosh, I have to really start learning so much and davening so much and giving so much tzedakah and doing all those things. And the lesson from this perek is, that's not the point. Do one thing, push yourself. That's your service of Hashem. And as we learned last week, as the Alter Rebbe says, this time, the 101st time, which is more than what you're used to, which you're used to from your youth, shkula keneged kulan, is the equivalent of them all. Is more important than all of them, with so much more strength. To be called Oived Elikim. And that's, there are two measures. The Pasuk talks about Tzaddik in Russia and Oived Elikim and Layavade. Tzaddik in Russia, I can't be a tzaddik in 5 minutes, even if a tzaddik is a measure of a person. A person's a tzaddik or a person's a rasha. How refined is this person? How holy is this person? And that's one measuring stick. But there's another, Oived Elikim and Layavade is a totally different measuring stick. It's not about how holy you are, but are you serving Hashem or not? You can be very holy and not serving Hashem. And you can be someone who's not so holy, but when you push yourself, you're actually serving Hashem. So in terms of, what do I have to do to serve Hashem? It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot. Pick one area in your life, push yourself a little for Hashem, dafka for Hashem, and with that you become Oived Elikim. Yeah.
Why are they using the terminology כל השונה פרקו 100 פעמים אינו דומה ל101? Why שונה and not לומד? בסדר, שיננתם לבניך.
Because shona means to review. To review.
Or שונה is review.
Must review it, yeah.
Let's say the 101 time becomes teva. 102 would be. You can keep going further on and on. It could be progressive.
Yeah, but you have to remember, it's not only in quantity, but it could be also in quality. In other words, I'm comfortable. Some people are more comfortable learning Gemara, Legirsa, Lemigras, just Gemara Rashi. So put in a little more. Taisvis, put in something else. In other words, the main thing, you should be pushing yourself. That could be both it could be either in quantity or in quality.
And once you become comfortable at a new level,
I visit my parents, whatever. So I visit my parents, or I call them once, whatever. So I can push myself by doing it more often, or I can push myself to try to make the quality of the relationship better. But whatever which way it is, you're pushing yourself. Yes, always pushing yourself.
to the next madrega, to the next
Right.
level. Yeah?
And when that level becomes hergo, when that becomes something, but the key is to remember 100 to 101, not 100 to 200, not 100 to 150. Don't try to jump too much. Whatever you're used to, add one more. Add one more. It has to hurt. It doesn't have to hurt a lot. It has to.
Be slightly stressed out.
Yeah. In other words, you're going a little more than you feel comfortable, because ultimately, as we mentioned, what does Mitzrayim? Mitzrayim mean, what's the biggest Mitzrayim? The biggest Mitzrayim is me. Biggest Mitzrayim is is when I'm living myself-centered for myself. And who am I? Who am I? I'm a speck of dust in the cosmic sense of things. Here today, gone tomorrow. And what the way to leave Mitzrayim is when it's not about me, but it's about Hashem, when I'm serving Hashem. Ultimately, it's just Mitzrayim is when I realize it's not about me and what I enjoy in my comfort zone, but I'm able to say I'm here to serve Hashem. And the way that we know we're serving Hashem is when you do that 101st time.
It doesn't work the opposite way. If somebody does 10 Averos a day, now just do 9 Averos a day. No, we get this. I think it's a different kind of relationship there.
There's a part, I think, from the Baal Shem Tov that we have no idea how much pleasure it gives Hashem when a Yid does one Avera less, which is a very interesting thing. In other words, that we think I'll do mitzvah, I do one less Avera.
I ate treif 10 times today, so I'll eat one extra meal.
I'm pretty sure it's in the Baal Shem Tov Azavart. And so it's true. If I push myself, I do it for Hashem. That does make me Eved Elokim. From a Lubavitch perspective, I can tell you that in general, when you're trying to build your relationship with Hashem and serve Hashem, the easiest way to go about it. The word also isn't easiest. The word is most. The best results will come. In other words, the most practical way is to add in kedusha. In other words, don't stop doing things. Start doing things. And when the Kotzker Rebbe once said that I want to have chassidim that don't do averis, not because they're not allowed to, but because they don't have time to. Which is a very. I found that when I heard that, it blew my mind. Why am I not doing averis? It's averis. I can't do it. Hashem told me not to. If a yid is sitting and learning Torah and doing mitzvahs the whole day and serving the Eibush there, where's there time to do an avera? In other words, do Samchaim, right? So be meisiv in kedusha. Do another mitzvah. Learn a little more Torah. And the Averis will slip away. But in other words, don't start by focusing on what you're not going to do, because ultimately what you're doing when that happens, you're leaving a vacuum. Because so now you're just sitting, I'm not doing. No. Lift yourself up and automatically. Anyway, but that's just in terms of practicality. But
tshuva, that's not enough as far as tshuva is concerned. You have to have karot, you have to have pinvit or whatever.
And achaname. But even in terms of tshuva, but tshuva has to be practical. Meaning, let's say someone is deep in the mud, right? He's doing tshuva. So what is he going to say? He's going to start doing all the mitzvahs right now and none of the averos. When someone becomes from, what are you going to tell him? Okay, start keeping Shabbos and learn Torah all day and no treif and throughout you tell that's not the way it works.
With no Bali Tshuva.
As we say, ma'at agar shanu, and we have to become Bali Tshuva also. A lot of times we say, if you want to be honest ourselves, there's a lot of avodah to do, and we say, but when it comes to the conquering of Eretz Yisrael, ma'at. If you're gonna, what's lashon tefasta merubah tefasta. You're gonna grab too much, you're gonna crash, you're gonna fall. And my parents are shluchim, and one of the things they do is they actively tell people to slow down when they're becoming from. And from experience, it's necessary, because people who jump, they crash. So the question is, if I'm moving slowly, what area should my focus be on? Of course, the tshuva has to come with the charata, and the focus should be stronger on the asay toiv than on the sur meirah. Add more in good, and automatically the sur meirah goes away. Right? And all lives also, listen, we all have many areas to fix, both in sur meirah and asay toiv. And definitely both have to be dealt with, and you can't ignore the sur meirah, but that shouldn't be our main occupation. How am I going to come to serve Hashem? By doing less and less and less and less bad things. Yes, you have to do less bad things, but keep on doing good things, and that'll also help you in your avodah of sur meirah. So, how did we get into this conversation? This whole conversation about Eved Elokim and Lo Yavadeh, where does this come from? So let's trying to think how to do this. Okay, let's do inside Tanya. We're holding page Chaf Aleph, opposite of page 40. Three lines from the bottom, it says Mipnei. Mipnei, because Shekidei L'Shan Nechtavar Regilus. Why is it important to be Eved Elokim? And why is studying that 101st time, why is that so much greater than everything else. Because shekadei l'shanis tavar regilos, what impels someone to change their nature? For that, sarach lo'eder es ha'aval Hashem. I need to awaken my love for Hashem. How do I awaken my love for Hashem? When a person thinks into and contemplates the greatness of Hashem in his mind, which allows him allows him to control the nature which originates from the left side of the heart, the nafsh bahamis hamali dam, left side of the heart which is filled with blood. Hanefesh bahamis shemahaklipa. The nature comes from the nafsh bahamis. Nafsh bahamis is where my comfort zone. So for me to leave my comfort zone, I have to awaken my love for Hashem. And how do I awaken my love for Hashem? By thinking into Hashem's greatness. V'zui avodah tamal beinani. This is a complete and perfect avodah for the beinani. What does this mean? In the end of Perek Yudalid, the last part of Perek Yudalid, if you remember, we spoke that the Alter Rebbe makes a big transition. Until the middle of Perek Yudalid, whenever the Alter Rebbe talks about the Beinani, the focus is on doing the right thing, doing only mitzvahs, and staying away from Averis. Or to put it in different words, Al Tehi Rasha, don't be a Rasha, because if there's a mitzvah that you have to do and you don't do it, you're a Rasha. And on the same, by the same token, if you do an Avera, you're a Rasha. So Al Tehi Rasha, if you're not a Rasha, automatically you're a Beinani. A Beinani is someone who doesn't do Averis and does only mitzvahs. So until the middle of Perek Yudal, the Alter Rebbe is focused on the Al Tehi Rasha. And then in the end of Perek Yudal, the Alter Rebbe takes a turn, and suddenly the Alter Rebbe starts talking about Tehi Tzadik. Be a Tzadik. What do you mean be a Tzadik? Didn't we learn that there are only very limited amount of unique neshamas that have the ability, the potential to be a Tzadik? Again, a Tzadik is someone who has no Yetzer Hara and has only a love for Hashem, and detests everything which is Gashmi and anything that is repulsed by Elam Hazat, only desires Hashem and Torah and mitzvahs. Alter Rebbe says that's true. You probably will never become a tzaddik, but keep on trying. Why do you have to keep on trying? Keep on trying to develop a love for Hashem. Keep on trying to develop a distaste for Elam Hazat. That is avodah. It's not enough not to do averes. It's not enough to do mitzvahs. That's all in the practical. That's all machshava, dibur, ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action. You have to work on your heart also. You have to try to develop a love for Hashem. Try to be a tzaddik. Will you ever make it all the way and be a tzaddik? Will your love for Hashem ever be like a burning coal of fire that you only want to just connect to Hashem? It's not going to happen unless you happen to be from the lucky few who have the neshama of a tzaddik. But the fact that you're never going to make it to the finish line does not absolve you from keeping on trying. To be tzaddik, be a tzaddik. Avodah, you have to work on yourself. And that's where this Perek is directly follows Perek Tezvav. The Alter Rebbe is saying that yes, you could be a Beinani and never do an Avera, but you're loy avadai. If you're loy avadai, let's put it in different words. If someone who learns only 100 times, Al Tehi Rasha, he accomplished. He's not a Rasha. But the Tehi Tzaddik, he's not doing. Tehi Tzaddik, the actively working on himself to always awaken a love for Hashem and to serve Hashem and to love Hashem and to fear Hashem, that he's not doing. So this Perek Tezvav is a direct continuation of what we were learning about earlier, in terms of this is what the rest of Tanya really is going to be about, is because the Beinani, on the one hand, is someone who has to constantly make sure Al Tehi Rasha, not to slip up, not to do any Averis. That's all of us. On the one hand, we have to always be on the guard not to do Averis and do the mitzvahs, but we can't forget that that's not all there is to life. Life isn't only about not doing Averis and doing mitzvahs. We also have to be avadeh. We have to serve Hashem. Serve Hashem means awakening a love for Hashem within us. And what is the measure? How do I know if I love Hashem? If I learn 101 times. Or in our own life, however we...
What's when it hurts a little bit.
Yes. Right? Let's say talk in Olam Hazeh. How do you know? How do you know if you love someone?
What?
How do you know if you love someone in this world, in the physical relationships? When you're willing to go what?
Do things for them. Out of the way.
But not only do things to
An
them.
extra mile for them,
Yeah, yeah.
even when it hurts.
Even when it hurts, right?
At bad times.
Right. Right. That's let's between a good marriage and a bad marriage. A good marriage is, what do I have to do? Tell me what I have to do, and I'll do it. Okay, so Friday I have to get flowers. I'll get the flowers. On the birthday I have to get this, and I have to take out the garbage, as mentioned, right? Well, I'm doing. I'll to Russia. I'm doing everything perfect, right? I'm not a Russia. I'm following the manual. I read the book. I read the book before I got married, and everything I'm doing. But if you loved, you wouldn't just be reading the manual. You'd be going beyond that. The same thing is in terms of our relationship with Hashem. Oiv with Hashem is not just following the manual. Torah says, I can't do this. I don't do it. I have to do that. But you take it further also. And now we're going to meet. Yeah.
How's this different from lifting shur sidin the Gabi Chassidus? It's like lifting shur sidin. You're a chassid. Would you categorize here? You're categorizing him as an ovid Hashem. It's really a chassid Hashem. Because it's really lifting shur sidin.
These are all related ideas, right? Lifting shur sidin, definitely a related idea. On the other hand, what if someone is used to lifting shur sidin? And he has to take it further.
That's not lifting. Then his lifting mishus
becomes even more. We mentioned last week that oivid, the word oivid in Chassidus explained, is related to the word ibud oiris, tanning leathers. That you take a leather which is rough, a hide which is rough, and you make it into Sefer Torah. And that's what we're doing also with ourselves. And that's not a process of action. That's a process of really engaging in a relationship with Hashem and loving Hashem and going beyond our. Since we're talking about stories from Tanoim, it's another story which is a similar idea, probably somewhat famous. I believe it's in Masechtas Brachos, where it says that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, before he passed away, so he told his Talmidim, he was crying, and his Talmidim asked him, "Why are you crying?" And he said, "Eini yedeya be'eza derech melichin oisi." I don't know which way I'm being led. I don't know. I'm going to Gan Eden, going to Gehenna, which is actually kind of similar to what Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian says. But there he's more explicit actually. He was like, because one way leads to here, and he goes and describes the one way of Gan Eden, the one way of Gehenna. And here too, the Mefarshim asked the question, how could he not know which way he's going? Some say, those who want to, I don't know if it's Mefarshim or more the modern day people, they want to attribute it to his choice that he made to give up on the Beis HaMikdash and instead to establish yeshiva in Yavne, and his famous encounter with what was the name of the king? Vespasian. About that Masechtas Gittin, which not all the Chacham agreed with him. In other words, even the Gemara brings down that there were Chacham who thought that he made the wrong choice. So maybe he wasn't sure if he made the right choice. Although obviously his history vindicated Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in the strongest way possible. So the Rebbe Nesicha once suggested an explanation. He said that true, had Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai stopped for a moment to think which way is he going, he immediately would have come to the conclusion that he's going to Gan Eden. But he never stopped to think, because he was so busy doing his job in this world, doing his shlichus, of leading Klal Yisrael and preserving Torah and doing whatever he did, all his great things, that he never took the luxury of stopping back and thinking, okay, so am I doing a good job, am I doing a bad job, am I serving Hashem, am I not serving Hashem, am I this? So as he's about to die, he was like, oh my gosh, I never for a moment made a cheshbon nefesh even. I never even stopped to think about what's going on. Where are they taking me? And this is obviously the consummate idea of it not being about me. That my serving Hashem, it's not about me and my comfort zones, but a person is completely engrossed in love with Hashem and therefore engrossed in serving Hashem and doesn't take even a break to think about his own status and place within the relationship and within that plan. But now we're going to be introduced to a little of a new idea. So what did the Alter Rebbe say? How does a person awaken love for Hashem? So he says, and this is really the principle of Chabad, the principle. which is Chabad is the idea of contemplating the greatness of Hashem, Chachma Bina Das, using one's intellect, and thereby to generate in one's heart a love for Hashem. And once you have a love for Hashem, then automatically not only do you do the right thing, but you serve Hashem in a way of avodah. That's one way of serving Hashem. And as Alter Rebbe said, "V'zuhi avodah," top of page 42. We just finished. "V'zuhi avodah tam l'beinani." This is the complete avodah for the common person, for the struggler, which is to develop, to work, and thinking about the greatness of Hashem, and thereby to develop a love for Hashem within his heart. Oi, but now the Alter Rebbe is going to say there's another path. Another path is not to generate a new love, to create a new love through contemplating Hashem's greatness, but to awaken a pre-existing love. The Ava Mesutera Shabiliboy, the hidden love which is within one's heart, which we've spoken about, I believe, on several occasions already. What is this hidden love? Just like every parent has a hidden love for their child. Remember we spoke about this?
Yeah.
But I have 2 children off in camp. So sometimes it's out of sight, out of mind. So does that mean that I don't love them at those moments when I'm not thinking about them? I definitely love them. At those moments also, it's not possible for a parent not to love their children. But the only thing is, at this moment it's hidden. But at any moment it can surface and burst into fire. The same thing is every single Yid has a love for Hashem. And this love merely has to be awakened. Limshel al yada, through awakening this hidden love, to be able to overcome and overpower ala teva shebachal lasmali, over the nature which is in the left side of the heart. Shazun nikra gamkein avoda, this is also considered an avoda, lihilachim emateva v'hayetzer, to battle with the nature and the Yetzer Hara, al yidei shemo'ered avam suteres belibai, through awakening the hidden love in one's heart. Ashenken kashein le'milchama klal, as opposed to when a person doesn't do any battle at all. Ein avazu mitzad atzma, the fact that you have this hidden love, the fact that you have it, that's not ein in the kras avidase klal. That's not, you can't take credit for that. In other words, the fact that you have a hidden love for Hashem, you can't take credit for it. That's not called avodas Hashem. If you work to awaken that love, so then that also is considered an avodah. What does it mean to awaken the hidden love? So we touched upon it briefly in the beginning of Perek Yud Dalet. And we're going to, as we said then, we're going to talk about it at length. Chapter 18 and on, chapter 18 through 25 is going to talk at length about what it means to awaken this hidden love. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on it right now. But
I don't know if it's hidden or something that's it's a new, or love was just it's like a new love. If you never, how could you determine what's that was always part of you, or something that's new? And what difference does it make, as far as you're concerned?
okay, so let's talk about love for a parent to a child. Use that analogy. Let's say you need to do something for your child. Difficult. It's not the easiest thing to do. You're lacking motivation at this moment. You'd rather spend your time doing something else. But your child needs you. So you need to either create a love for your child or awaken the love for your child. And those are 2 different processes. One process is to start thinking about your child and how wonderful your child is and all the nachas your child is giving you and the wonderful times that you spend together. Just thinking about wonderful, great qualities of your child till your heart starts flowing with love, and then you're motivated to do what you have to do. So you created a love because using the process of Chabad to Midas, thinking about the beauty of something, the greatness of something, that automatically that creates a love. There's another way to go about it, and that is to imagine the worst. I know that's in other words, tell yourself, if my child was in danger, chas v'shalom, is there anything I wouldn't do to save my child? And the answer to that is no. I know that as a fact. Even at that moment when I'm not necessarily feeling that love burning in my heart and I'm not motivated, I know that deep down that my child is more important than me than anything. It's more important than my job, it's more important than my position, it's more important than my house, it's more important than my car, whatever, anything that you could say, my child is more important. Proof being that if I had to choose between my child and my job, or my child and my house, there's nothing that I would choose over my child. So here I am, sitting in my living room, and I'm just being lazy instead of doing something for my child. One second, but my child is the most important thing to me. And that thought motivates me to get up and to do something for my child. What's the difference between the first thing that I described and the second thing that I described? One of them, my heart is filled with love, which I created. The other one, all I did was I called upon the deep love which I know that I have for my child, and that motivated me to do the right thing. You see the difference in the two? And the same thing in our service of Hashem. That's the two things that he's talking about. And again, I'm saying this in very short right now, but this is going to be the topic of a few prakim later on. One way of generating a love for Hashem is thinking about how great Hashem is. You know, Suki de Zimra, how Hashem creates all the worlds, and he puts the grass on the mountains, and everything, and all the spiritual worlds, and all the malachim, thinking about Hashem's greatness, and then thinking about how much Hashem loves us, and how much we have to be grateful to Hashem, until we create a love for Hashem. That is the avodah tama. That is the proper avodah for the Beinoni, which is for us, for the struggler. How do I awaken a love within myself to Hashem? Thinking about Hashem's greatness, contemplating it, taking time actually to think about it, until my heart pashat becomes filled with love for Hashem, and then I'm motivated to do whatever is necessary for Hashem. Another derech that Rabbi is going to talk about later is some people, it's difficult for them, because as much as they think, their minds aren't so deep and their hearts aren't so deep, and for them to create their own love is a very difficult process. So for them, there is this bypass, there's this override, which is Yid stops and thinks to himself, 1 second, if someone put a gun, we spoke about this beginning of Perek Yudal, someone put a gun to my head and told me to bow down to a cross, I would give up my life, which means that my relationship with Hashem is the most important thing to me in the world. And by Yid, there's nothing more important than a relationship with Hashem. Every Yid gives up their life. Akdushas Hashem. So if my relationship with Hashem is the most important thing in my life, so I'm not going to do this mitzvah. I'm going to do this avera. So what we have over here is your heart isn't filled with love, but what you did was you used your mind to call upon that hidden love that you have for Hashem, and that allowed you to break your nature and learn that 101st time. That's not, as the Alter Rebbe says, if you look inside. So this, he doesn't call this an avodah tama. He says, this is also an avodah. In other words, awakening the Avim Soteres is also avodah. In other words, someone who serves Hashem and breaks his nature through awakening the Avim Soteres, you're Oived Elokim, don't worry about being Alei Avadeh. But it's not an avodah tama. Avodah tama means that you're actually using your mind to generate a new love for Hashem. Mashenki, Dr. Rebbe says, on the other hand, if you don't have a mulchama at all, in other words, you're just in your comfort zone, so the fact that you happen to have avim soteris, that you have this deep love for Hashem, that's not your avodah. You can't take any credit for that, and therefore, that such a person is called a lay avadeh.
The hidden love to Hashem, it's not every Jew has a Pintal Yid. Let's start from there.
Yes, the hidden love for Hashem and the Pintal Yid is the same thing, is one and the same. In other words, what makes me a Jew is my love for Hashem. That defines my Jewishness. Okay.